Hey everyone, my name is Scruffy. After plenty of research and preparing our written guides, I am happy to present you today our Ara-Kara guide for the War Within Season 1. As long as you see this video, we can ensure that it is up to date. If there are any updates or changes to this dungeon, we will make sure to either add some remarks or completely re-upload this video. You can already find our early guides for classes, dungeons and professions on your MMO. And without further ado, let me explain you Ara-Kara, City of Echoes. All dungeons from the War Within are segmented for their respective boss. In Area 1, you will find 4 different trash mobs and 3 mini-bosses that have to be defeated in order to summon our first boss, Avanox. Jabbing Flyer will apply Bleeding Jab with their hits, a stacking bleed that should be taken care of. Discorded Attendants that you find on your way will attack the current target with Web Bolt. They also channel Resonant Barrage, dealing group-wide damage which cannot be interrupted. Because of them, make sure to be careful in fortified weeks to not pull too many of them at the same time. Staffed Crawlers just do regular attacks without any debuff of anything. Last trash mob you will find here are Engorged Crawlers. They attack the current target with Venomous Spit, and at reaching 20% health, they start fixating on a random player and cast Toxic Rupture. This will kill the mob and deal deadly damage to players inside their circle. No worries, they are slowed while casting this. All 3 mini-bosses, Ixin, Nagt, and Attic are pretty similar to each other, with one special ability. All of them will use Web Bolt on the current tank, with Attic using Poison Bolt instead, that leaves a stacking debuff on the tank. All of them use Web Spray, a frontal cone in the direction of a random player. This leaves some webs on the floor, indicated by a typical white swirl. Ixin's special ability is Horrifying Shrill, fearing all players if not interrupted. Nect will just spawn additional Staffed Crawlers with his Call of the Brood ability. And Attic spawns a Poisonous Cloud on the location of a random player, indicated by a green swirl. Defeating all 3 of these will summon Avanox. If you're scared of spiders, turn on your Arachnophobia filter to turn this boss into a king crab. Alerting Shrill will deal group-wide damage and also alert new Staffed Crawlers. These will fixate onto a random player and chase them. They also deal more damage the longer they are alive. Gossamer Onslaught also deals group-wide damage, but also spawns vile webbings that land on random locations. Players standing in them for too long and reaching 10 stacks will be stunned. Any Staffed Crawler that walks over these webs will gain additional movement speed. Both of these abilities deal damage to all players in your party, but Avanox will deal even more damage if it has the Insatiable stacks. Each Staffed Crawler that is still alive during the boss fight will grant him a stacking 100% damage buff. Make sure to kite the adds quick together and kill them ASAP. If these abilities still don't kill your group while buffed with Insatiable, then maybe your tank will die due to the Voracious Bite. Avanox unleashes 3 consecutive bites into the tank, dealing heavy physical damage and increase the tank's damage taken by 100% for 12 seconds after the final bite. Up next, you are on your way to the second boss, Anub'Sect. Once again, you will encounter 4 different trash mobs here in this segment until you reach the next boss segment. Blood Workers do also just attack with medium attack damage, similar to the Staffed Crawlers. Bloodstained Assistants will attack the tank with Extraction Strike. This deals heavy damage and heals the enemies for the amount of damage they did. If this attack is not avoided in any way, the assistants will gain Unnatural Bloodlust, causing them to do more damage and heal. This buff can stack, but it's an enrage effect that can be soothed. Bloodstained Web Mage channel Web Wrap on a random player, immobilizing them and causing them to take 15% increased nature damage for the duration. This mob will also later on appear on the next boss. They also cast Revolting Volley, which must be interrupted by any means. This deals heavy group-wide damage, applies a debuff to deal even more damage, and to make sure that your healer cannot keep up with this, it also applies a heal absorb that has to be compensated. And last, the Hulking Bodyguard. They use Massive Slam, which deals group-wide damage and stuns all players for 1 second within 60 yards. Impale is a frontal cone that deals damage and knocks players back that are struck. As a hint, this is also a boss ability. Oh, and if you like these trash mobs so much, you can alert a Sentry Stack Shard. They have really low life, but cast Alarm Shrill. If this cast finishes, you will get a bunch of extra mobs if you're really into that. Anub'Sect will cast Impale on its current target, indicated by many large swirls in a cone, dealing heavy damage to players struck and knocking all players away. Infestation is a debuff that will be applied to a random player, dealing damage every 0.5 seconds for 5 seconds. Upon expiration, this spawns a Ceaseless Swarm. These are blue circles swarming around, applying a damage over time debuff to players that are struck by it. Burrow Charge will lock onto the player that is the furthest away. Then Anub'Sect burrows through the ground, knocking players and deal damage to them that are struck in his path, and then he emerges from the ground and then casting Impale onto a random distant player. And in Mythic, Bloodstained Web Mage, similar to the ones from the trash mobs, will spawn and cast Web Wrap on a random player to immobilize them. Make sure to interrupt and kill them quick. Upon reaching 100 energy, Anub'Zek uses Eye of the Swarm. All players have to hide in that big circle, which also moves around in the arena, so don't get lost behind. During this time, Anub'Zek will consecutively cast Impale and also Infestation, so make sure to dodge a lot and be aware of even more blue circles to emerge from your teammates. The third and last segment will also now feature 4 new trash mobs to deal with. Blood Overseer uses Venom Volley, that has to be interrupted. He also uses Erupting Webs, which spawns little swirls that stun players that are struck, but they already look very familiar after the first 2 bosses, I bet. Winged Carrier drop Grasping Blood upon hitting them. This will also be a boss ability that we will then cover later. Standing in these Grasping Blood will root players for 1 minute and make them suffer rather light damage over that duration. Reinforced Drone uses Grasping Slash against their current target, dealing heavy damage and slowing them. Last, you encounter an Erubian Hauler. They use Massive Slam, similar to the Harks before, but here they gain intensity. The more often they use Massive Slam, the more damage they do. Make sure to kill him quick and maybe use even some cooldowns. Final boss of Ara-Kara is Kikatel, the Harvester. The Blood Workers and their Grasping Blood are the same as during the Trash Mobs. These Blood Workers fly into and through the encounter area and drop the Grasping Blood upon their first damage take. Afterwards, they flee, so you don't have to deal with them in any further way. Otherwise, Venom Volley deals group-wide damage and applies a ticking damage debuff, and Erupting Webs, similar as before, will deal heavy damage and stun players that are struck. The important ability here is Cosmic Singularity. Kikatel pulls in all players and just kill any player that is within 10 yards of the boss. If you manage to survive this storm, you will be knocked, receive a faded debuff, increasing your damage taken by 75% and reducing your damage done by 75% for 12 seconds. To avoid getting hit, make sure to be very far away or use the Grasping Blood. Walking into the Grasping Blood pools will root players for 1 minute, but can be cleansed by abilities like Hand of Freedom or Tiger's Lust. Stepping into a Grasping Blood will also cause the respective add to spawn and fixates the player that triggered it. There's also one more ability in Mythic, Cultivated Poisons. All players will be affected by a green circle. Upon expiration or despelling, they will shoot 2 projectiles in the direction indicated by the laser beams coming out of the players. Make sure to spread out and aim your projectiles away from other players.